Welcome to GlobeWatch with me, Charles Ebune. Climate change is a creation of the Chinese to make American products non-competitive in the world. Those are the words of now U.S. President Donald Trump, as environmental campaigners and scientists across the world maintain that climate change is one amongst the first 10 threats facing the world today. And the latest message from Washington is this: the Trump administration has ordered U.S. environment watchdog, the Environmental Protection Agency, to delete all its material on its website showing climate change is a danger. The question today is, how do we secure the future of the Paris climate change deal, which was concluded by over 200 countries to safeguard the future of the world? My guest today is one of the civil society campaigners present in Paris during negotiations to secure that historic deal, and he was equally received by outgoing French President Francois Hollande and happens to be one of the top officials of the Pan-African Climate Justice Alliance. Augustine NJAMNSHI, welcome to GlobeWatch.
Thank you very much, Charles.
As an environmental campaigner, the words of Donald Trump and his victory as U.S. president, did they frighten you?
Well, to say frighten me is a little, it's not commensurate with the shock that we had. But coming from a president that has proven that he means every word of his mouth, it is even more shocking today. During campaigns, we believe that most of the time what is said during campaigns is not really what is put into practice when you are faced with the reality. But President Trump has followed his word by action, and so it is more worrying. It's not even in the words again, but in the act that we see that we are heading towards a very negative world as far as climate change is concerned.
And the actions are very eloquent in the choice of some of the people in his key areas of the decision-making process. The Secretary of State, who is America's presence in the world, Rex Tillerson, is somebody who comes from the gas and oil industry, where there is this message of maintaining the fossil fuel industry. And if you have America's top environmental protector, the Environmental Protection Agency, headed by Scott Pruitt, somebody who rejects the very existence of the climate change science, is that even more of a worry to campaigners like you?
Yeah, it's more of a worry because everybody knows that there are certain principles of international environmental law that have to be respected. And if Scott Pruitt statement, which says that the fact that, or what people are claiming, that climate change is mainly caused by human action on Earth, is still debatable among scientists, and that he encourages debate even in schools and in conference halls and in every public space, shows that he can be taken to be a climate denier. And for somebody heading such an institution to have doubt, it's very disheartening. You know, Charles, even when science is not yet clear about something, the international principle of environmental law, that is the precautionary principle, is to the effect that where there is still doubt about the science, the veracity of a science of some point, inaction should not be taken as an excuse to postpone action, especially when the consequences might be irreversible. You are seeing that.
What does the words of Scott Pruitt, what do they inspire you vis-a-vis the Paris climate change deal, which was sealed by nearly 200 countries, and you were in France. You were received by President François Hollande, the outgoing French president. How much of an impact is that on this historic climate change deal? And if the USA leaves?
Yeah, the thing is, first of all, the climate agreement in Paris was a success in the sense that they brought everybody on the table, because we were fearing the fiasco of Copenhagen. If some people did not come to the table, the climate regime would have collapsed. So when we had China and America and other major emitters on the table, that was already a positive thing. Although the commitments in Paris are not sufficient enough to stop the climate crisis, but at least they can reduce it to some point. If we look at the commitments or the pledges of the United States of America, they sum up to 22 gigatons of carbon dioxide reduction in the years ahead. So now, if America pulls out of it, of this agreement, it means 22 gigatons of carbon dioxide emissions will be left in the atmosphere. So if you look at the total of the pledges, is about 100 gigatons. So 22 gigatons is already 1/5. 1/5 of the commitments will not be respected. That is a fiasco. Now, the consequences are not only at that level. The impact, the message it will be sending to the rest of the world. If China, for instance, says, okay, America has refused to take action, why should I be bound to my own commitments? Then you can see that another great percentage has been pulled out. On the other hand, however, if China says, okay, forget about America, let me go ahead as a good boy and do what I pledged to do, because this problem is serious, China would have taken the leadership of the world, which is an advantage to China anyway.
Well, that's shifting global power. But let me just give you a quotation. We have great concerns about the new president's views on climate change and his reported plans to abandon the Paris Agreement, said a cross-party environmental audit committee of the British Parliament just days before Theresa May, the British Prime Minister, traveled to Washington to meet Donald Trump. Statements like this, how do they reshape the work of environmental campaigners? In other words, how are you reshaping your strategy to have a counter-environmental strategy policy which can impede the intended intentions of the Trump presidency vis-a-vis climate justice around the world?
Perfect. The thing is, we are not only concentrating on Trump. Trump is an individual. His administration is just another administration in the United States of America. The highest they can be there is for 8 years. That is very clear. But our campaign goes beyond that. It goes into the minds of the people.
You intend to console yourself by the fact that 2 months into office, in 2001, George W. Bush said, damn you, Kyoto Protocol, I'm not going to sign this. Yeah. And 8 years he left. And Tony Blair told him that, look, Mr. Bush, you're my good friend, but you know there is climate change. We can not avoid that. Do you console yourself by the policies of the George Bush administration to say that, okay, probably Donald Trump will just be there for maybe 4 years or 8 years, and after that, business normal?
We cannot postpone action. What I'm trying to say is this. He's the president of a country. And what he says binds his people. But it is such a democratic country that people can decide to do what is good, no matter what the administration is doing. Let me tell you, just before he won the elections, the state of Washington had this carbon tax scheme that they were proposing, where they will levy $25 per ton of carbon emitted from transport, electricity sector, and then they will use the revenue to pay some of the environmental issues in their country. Unfortunately, it did not happen because he came to power. But what I'm trying to say here is that states and American people can still do something. They can still take commitments. And our focus now is not talking to the administration only. If we can talk to them and they change their minds, which I'm not very sure, That is fine. But we are not dealing directly with American people. The like-minded organizations in America will not only be talking to the senators, the Congress, the administration, but also even church-based, faith-based organizations. Let me tell you something. When Scott Prout talk about this argument of climate change being linked
even scientists don't agree,
agree and things like that.
Into classrooms.
You know, when he was criticized, about 40 leaders of Southern Baptist Convention wrote a petition supporting him. They said he should not be seen as a climate skeptic. They don't refuse the fact that there's climate change. But they went ahead to say that people should not make this climate change look as if the presence of man on earth is a plight, and that they should stop enjoying the natural things that God has given them. That in another way says that let us live our lives. Let us live our lives. Don't frighten us. Okay? It's not only about Trump.
That is not going to happen.
You know that
is not going to happen. Donald Trump, the moment he came to office, the entire White House speech had all material on climate change completely deleted.
You mean the White House
the
website?
White House
yes.
website,
yes.
completely deleted.
Yes.
There is no talk about that.
Yeah.
The Congress people, the environmental protection in the U.S., all the communities you are talking about, no, everybody is powerless because probably there's not going to be a referendum on that topic in the U.S. The elections are over. The person who had that platform was Hillary Clinton. He says that the Environmental Protection Agency should equally do same. Everybody is just complaining, and at the end of the day, you remain at talk. Do you guys think that you can really change the mentality? What kind of scientific evidence or metaphors should Donald Trump presidency be given to him to reshape his course?
Let me start from the point. What can we do? Our strategy is people to people interaction now. We leave the administration up there, but states in America, groups, companies, and especially the various states, federated states, can still take action that can sum up to something. It might not be up to the 22 gigatons pledge that they had on the Paris Agreement, but at least they would have been doing something. That is what is ongoing. In fact, I just had a conference call 2 days ago with them, and then at the end of March, we're in the US. We'll be there for close to 3 weeks, just speaking in conventions and then galvanizing support from other Americans. Now, what is the message to Trump? What is the message to American people? Our message has been this. We are in the Titanic. All of us are on one ship, like the Titanic. It is sinking. The people of the poor countries that find themselves on the lower deck are feeling the effects already, and even more. But the bottom line is that at the end of the day, the whole thing will sink, and it will sink with everybody, including Americans. One, look at the Katrina.
That kind of metaphor does not frighten a billionaires-based administration where they can live well in comfortable areas without climate change.
In space, probably. In space, on the moon, probably. But let me tell you, when we had Katrina, in
2005,
in 2005,
the disaster of the Bush presidency.
Yes. If you saw what happened, especially with the black communities in the United States, you would have thought that it's somewhere in the deepest part of Africa, okay? You saw the poor people had suffered more than the rich people who had the luxury of maybe escaping, or who had houses that were more resistant to the shock, okay? So it's not only about Africa. It's not only about poor people in Africa. It's about everybody. America cannot be great again just by looking at itself. America cannot be great again by being egoistic. America cannot be great again by withdrawing from the table of the big people. By withdrawing from the Paris Agreement, America is giving its seat to another person, and it will be occupied soon.
Donald Trump, during his campaigns, promised that he was going to renegotiate NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement. He said that he was going to take America out of the Trans-Pacific Trade Partnership. That has already been done at the policy level. He says that he was going to take the United States of America from TTIP, which is the Transatlantic Investment Partnership. All of these deals that have been concluded, the Iranian nuclear deal and whatsoever, the Paris Climate Change Agreement was so historic. Everybody claimed about it. Now, when Donald Trump takes the U.S. out of that deal, who will lose more environmentally?
The world will lose more environmentally. That's a fact. The world will lose more environmentally, but at the end of the day, America will also be losing a great deal.
What will the people in Africa, which have not heard in any of Donald Trump's speech, frankly, I've not heard Donald Trump mention Africa somewhere. Probably he has made, but I have not heard that. When he completely forgets Africa in this climate change discussion and whatsoever, you of the civil society movement in Africa that represents the Climate Justice Alliance and other names you can give to it, how do you feel? How do you interpret that?
You see, and that's what I noticed, and you are now confirming. You know, for the various press conferences that he has offered, neither the journalists have posed a question on Africa. I've not seen. Okay? That's just to corroborate what you are saying. So we may not be a priority for him, but do you live your life because of the importance someone else gives to you? You live your life with the importance you give to yourself. I think Africa has had to come out and think amongst themselves and change their way of life. Governance, democracy, and environmental protection and social well-being in Africa by Africans for Africans is very important. The Green Climate Fund is there and it's functional. What are we doing to gain from that? To build our resilience, to build economies that are carbon neutral. Those are the kind of things we should be thinking about. Trump can be singing about Africa from morning till evening. And if Africans don't want to help themselves, nothing will happen, okay? So I'm not very concerned about whether Trump is talking about Africa or not.
Well, let me just say to them, Professor Mann from Pennsylvania University says, quote, "The era of climate change denial is over. Rejection of the unequivocal scientific evidence that carbon emissions from the burning of fossil fuels are warming the planet and changing our climate is no longer socially acceptable." What kind of scientific pressure from the academia can be built around the climate change skeptics around the world? Because if you go to France, people like Marine Le Pen, who belong to this populist movement, you go to Greece, people like Alexis Tsipras, if you go to Sweden, Ger and others who belong to this new brand of politics, environmental issues are of very little value to them. What do they need extra?
You see, one of the funniest things is how politics can influence the use of scientific
because the
results.
Green Fund you are talking about, these are the major funding countries whose political rhetorics shape the mind of their populace, of their donor organizations in funding those institutions. And if they tell their populace that, look, this is a hoax, this is a farce,
yes,
what will you do?
We don't want to put money again in it and things like that.
Yeah.
It has not yet come to that. It has not yet come to that.
What if it comes to that?
We are talking about what Africa is doing, and I'm concentrating on that. What is Africa doing today to have access to those funds? Because they keep complaining the conditions are so tough, and we had a clean development mechanism. It came and went. Very few sub-Saharan African countries had projects on the clean development mechanism. And today we hear the same complaint that the procedure of the Green Climate Fund is very difficult, so they should review it. No, we should go out of that. We should not be babies all the time. When the procedure is there, it has been established, let's do our homework, work within the lines and get what we want to get from there. Countries like Uganda have gained $24.1 million to do their policies on water, water catchments and wetlands. Okay, from the Green Climate Fund. That was on the 15th of December last year, 2016. So if Uganda can do it, Cameroon can do it, Nigeria can do it, Burkina Faso can do it, Chad can do it, I think we have to go into action now.
The case of California in the United States of America is just so exemplary because of the water crisis of what is happening there, and they have developed a strategy of having clean water through a clean energy power strategy, which consumes at least $1.5 billion, providing some 50 million gallons of water per day. This is happening in the US, and the top brass of the US governing class says that, oh, that's just some fiction movie, some James Brown movie somewhere. What extra do they need? I put that question to you back. Is there something extra that Donald Trump needs for him to understand that there is really climate change?
Donald Trump only says what his people want to hear. Immediately, we work with the people and they start telling him something else, he will bow down. That's how politics works in America. That is how politics works in democratic countries. You say what you have, what the people would like to hear, and you do what the people want you to do. So that is what Donald Trump is doing for now. But I'm not sure that it will take long before they realize that this is the path they have taken is not the correct path. They're not only going to lose their credibility as a leader of the world, they're also going to lose bigly in his words within America, because the impacts of climate change are there in America and they have come to stay if we don't do anything. God has a way of doing things. God has a way of doing things. You know, the calamities, I'm not celebrating, but the calamities,
you know, there are some people who don't believe in the existence of God, right? So when you say God has a way of doing certain things,
I believe in God.
Good and fine.
And Trump himself believes in God.
You know that my viewers are made up of believers and non-believers.
Yes, yeah. And I am a resource person that believes in God. So that's why I want to share this. The happenings in the Northern Hemisphere for the last decade, the natural calamities, floods, hurricanes, and all those things, they happen in Japan, US, UK, and other places. Although they also happened in the Southern Hemisphere, but there was more frequency as well, big ones in the Northern Hemisphere. It's only sending a message that, look, this thing is everywhere. We have to do something. I think it's very important, Charles, to communicate this, and that we should not lose hope, because a major party, of course, has threatened or is threatening to withdraw from a regime. Does not mean that we should not continue with the good work. America was never part of the Kyoto Protocol, but we have come up to, we now have the second commitment period. That is the Doha Amendment that is put on the table for ratification. So it is going anyway. It's going to happen anyway.
We have had a series of climate change discussions at the highest level of discussions around the world. Kyoto Protocol, Cancun, Copenhagen 2009, Paris 2015, Marrakesh 2016, COP22, which you people style COP of implementation. What next?
What next? You mean for the COPs?
For example?
COP of implementation, the baptism COP of the implementation was actually, I think we voiced that in Paris for the first time. The thing was, when we said COP of implementation, it meant that we've taken 22 years just to talk. Just to talk. Just to agree that there's a problem, that we have to do something about it. Now that we've signed the agreement, let's be implementing. Let's show action. The other thing, and incidentally, it happened that the ratification of the Paris Agreement was unprecedented, in the sense that we never knew that by COP22 it would already have reached the threshold of 55 countries representing 55% of the global emissions. But by the 7th of November, we had had that. So the decisions, the institutions that had to be put in place for the proper implementation of the Paris Agreement are still in the process. So we are going to Germany for intersessions in May, and then of course, and then that is the COP23 in Bonn. It is the period in which we're trying to put those institutions that will operationalize effectively the Paris Agreement. So I think what next is putting into action the Paris Agreement.
Augustine NJAMNSHI, thank you very much indeed for being guest on GlobeWatch.
It's always a pleasure, Charles.
You're welcome.
Thank you.